Good evening. It is my great privilege to be speaking to all of you this evening on what I think are my dreams for securing health in India. As we've heard from Dr. Monica just now, it is God who enables us to dream dreams, to have visions, and to think about what makes things possible. As far as I'm concerned, health is something that we all work together for. Clinicians, non-clinicians, and the vast majority of people outside who influence the outcomes at individual and community levels. Many of us who are here this evening trying to hear God as to what His directions for us are going forward in our lives and what He chooses to do in and through us for our nation and beyond. My prayer is that we will not be constrained by artificial boundaries imposed on us by other people's expectations, imposed on us by the trainings that we are part of, have received, or will receive. But that with God, with His Spirit, we will be able to look beyond these artificial boundaries, onto the vistas that God opens to us, the opportunities that He places before us, with the tools that may be lying around all around us, to make things come together for shalom, for health, for well-being. As clinicians, we are probably pushed to think in terms of specialty, in terms of knowing a lot of things about something. That's like zooming in. What I would like to encourage is for you to zoom out. And as you zoom out, you tend to see things in context. Over the last 75 years or so, our country has thought about public health by and large in the spheres of how do we secure ourselves from infectious diseases? How do we ensure that our children survive? How do we ensure that women do survive maternity? And that's been the design of our public healthcare system, from the primary levels and then escalating up to the tertiary levels. We have to remember that our country has moved on from the TFR rates of 6+ in 1950s to just approximating 2 in the 2020s. That our life expectancy at birth from the early 30s in 1950 to today, we are just about the 70 mark in the 2020s. There's been a doubling of lifespan. And so therefore, it is incumbent on us to think about primary care, not just in terms of infectious diseases or things that affect children or maternity, but in terms of what happens at different stages of the life cycle. A cataract is a primary care problem for those who are in their 60s. That cannot be left merely as a process to be done by specialists. It has to be thought through at a primary care level. And there could be many such examples. It also means asking questions that not just clinicians are able to answer, but the answers need to come from many people. For example, the slide that you see, where there are different stages of the early part of the human life cycle illustrated. A great question to ask is, how many babies are born appropriate for their birth weight? Or, for example, how many of them reach the appropriate height and weight at age 1 when they go to school, when they are 14 years of age? Or what height and weight and age is a woman at her first pregnancy? Getting numerical, specific numbers as answers to these questions means the system has to work together. It's not merely seeing the patient, but seeing them through their life stages. Those inputs are beyond the hospital. The data may be collected at the point where they approach the healthcare system, but that needn't be the only place where such data is collected. What do you make of such data when you have it at district level or state level or national levels? The responses are then not merely clinical, they become political. Who do you target? Is there an equality of distribution of food? Are some communities more advantaged or less advantaged? That's when, to go back to Rudolf Virchow, health becomes a deeply political matter. And it should be, because the experiencing of health need not be something that is relegated to a hospital or a clinic-based enterprise. It is a society-wide imperative, and it needs the leadership and the active engagement of those that lead our communities and our nation. If I were to dream of what the future of this country will look like in terms of health, I would focus our attention on a very busy next slide. It's a lot of fine print. But let me tell you what some of the broad things here are. It tells me, or it tells us, or it focuses my mind and desire to see every child in this country have a head start, so that they not only form the basis of a vibrant society, but that they are also given the best possible springboard to achieve their own potential and dreams. Bharat Ratna should not be a lifetime honor for a few high-performing, well-known people. Every child should be treated as a jewel. Every child to their mother is the apple of their eye. Likewise, every child that's born in this country should be treated as a jewel, as somebody who will contribute to the life and the trajectory of this nation. Not everybody will contribute equally, but everybody should have the equality of opportunity, that same springboard. Every pregnancy should be a safe one, should be one that is desired, should not be something that starts off in violence against the body and mind of women. That may be beyond the realm of working in clinics. But if we don't address ourselves to the safety and the well-being of women when pregnancies start off, we set ourselves up for larger problems society-wide. What happens when children are born? Not only do they need to survive, they need to thrive, they need to be in school with the wherewithal to make the most of what schooling provides. A large cohort of stunted children going into school may only get us better gross enrollment rates, but does not necessarily guarantee us a generation of fine minds. sorting out stunting, sorting out cognitive lacks in children in entering school is something that we need to address ourselves to. And my dream is that every child who is born, who enters school, enters with appropriate height, appropriate weight, appropriate cognitive capabilities. So that when they are taught, and that's a whole different other conversation about what they are going to be taught, but when they are taught, they will have the ability to grasp, to question, to reason, and to make something out of it. It's only when we have questioning, inquiring, healthy minds and healthy bodies that we will have a vibrant young age group cohort who will be able to then launch out into their own dreams of who they want to be, what they want to do, the surroundings that they want to shape and create. To have healthy, productive citizens who are not going to be hamstrung by the lack of their own cognition or having to fight with each other for minuscule opportunities. Enabling young people to imagine, to create new opportunities without discrimination and without having to get into violence. That is a dream. Because remember, health is not merely the absence of disease, it's complete physical, mental, and social well being. India will have among the largest cohorts of people getting older. The 60s are the new 40s, people say. And if we have larger numbers of people getting older, if we are going to pride ourselves in having a longevity of life that's increasing into the 8th decade, then we need to make sure that the people who are heading towards their 7th, 8th decade in life are going to do so with reasonable health, with good preventive care services, with early supportive care for systemic illnesses, for inexpensive interventions that allow them to continue to be self-sufficient. Much of those are today confined into tertiary care settings in the private sector. If our older people need to live healthy lives, a lot of what is today tertiary care, privately financed services need to become primary, need to become inexpensive or paid for. And that is something that we need to grapple with as we go forward. And that's something that I would see as an imperative in my dreaming. We cannot wish away the private sector, but we can ask for coherence between what is happening in the public sector and the private sector. We need to make sure that there is a coherence in approaching healthy outcomes. We cannot have everything pushed to a tertiary out-of-pocket care system. We have to have primary therapeutic and preventive approaches, both in the private and public sector. We need to have a way to force an accountability for survival and thriving outcomes, both under our own Constitution's Article 21 and our global obligations that we sign up as a sovereign. Not only that, we also need to set ourselves up with the wherewithal where we have the resources, both financial and technical, to discover, develop, adopt, and roll out new interventions, new modalities, not only for our population, not only for our own needs, but also for the global needs. Recent events have sharpened the role that India can play in shaping global disease burden trajectories. And that is something that we definitely can play a big role in. And that's what I would like to kind of sum up as my set of dreams for India. A healthy head start for our children, a good, healthy, young, productive age span, and reasonable health for those in their sunset years, underpinned by a commitment to outcomes rather than inputs, underpinned by a commitment to have a measurement of who's living healthy rather than how many programs we have in place for controlling diseases, underpinned by a vision that when people are healthy, not only in their bodies but in their minds and in their communities, that together as a nation we will thrive and that we will be able to provide leadership and support to the rest of the world. That is what my dream is, and that is what I would encourage us to begin thinking beyond the constraints of our training, beyond the constraints of our specialties, to think way beyond in the frame that God sees us. That all of us are called to lives of significance, of lives of fullness and abundance. To that, I would encourage us to serve, to learn, and to lead. God bless you.